As Washington's budget impasse drags on, one victim is the nation's environment. Spending cuts since last fall have eroded the Environmental Protection Agency's ability to enforce some regulations and fund cleanups. Critics charge the GOP with engineering the cuts to change environmental laws through the back door. ABC's Catherine Cryer examines some of the fallout.
To many Americans, the Environmental Protection Agency may appear to be just another part of the faceless Washington bureaucracy. Faceless until it's needed.
We'll wipe out all the surfaces, the walls, the doorways.
EPA Coordinator Chris Wagner is in Richmond, Virginia, supervising the cleanup of over 100 properties contaminated by lead from a nearby smelting plant. But the EPA's reduced budget and recent shutdowns have made it impossible for Wagner to finish her job. The residents are angry.
They're very upset to know that a project like this has begun and may not be able to be completed because of what's going on at the federal level.
Sandy Carwile is one of the lucky ones.
They came out and excavated this land back here.
Her home and yard were cleaned before the budget impasse. But she says that alone will not protect her family, since funds to clean up the lead at the abandoned plant just down the road may be held up.
You can't just put up a fence and say this area is contaminated because it's dust, it's air, it can be airborne. I don't want to have to say to my daughter, you can only play in your yard because it's clean.
Carol Browner, who heads the EPA, says cutbacks are occurring nationwide.
Our Superfund program, our toxic waste cleanup program, more than 50% of the sites where we had been working are now affected.
Browner says the budget cuts are also hampering pesticide research, thousands of environmental inspections, and critical air and water cleanups in many communities. For example, in San Bernardino, California, a third of the city's drinking water is polluted by toxic waste buried beneath an old Army base. The city is purifying the water at the wellheads, but the EPA project to stop the spread of the underground contamination has come to a complete halt.
The longer that the cleanup is delayed, the more chance there is of our wells being contaminated too.
The shame about this one is it's so close to being fixed, and it got caught right in the middle of the budget picture.
The EPA says there are over 500 toxic waste sites across the country where work may be delayed by the budget impasse. And those delays could continue for months under the temporary funding. So until a final budget is enacted, many Americans will just have to wait. Catherine Cryer, ABC News, Richmond.
Last week we told you about an infant named Mitch. Mitch had a real rough start in life. He was abandoned under a van in a Philadelphia parking garage. A family court judge set what's believed to be a national precedent by placing Mitch with a private adoption agency rather than in a city's foster care agency where the judge charged too many children languished. Today, 2 weeks after being found, Mitch has been adopted, has a new family, and a new home. And when we return, an Olympic champion swimming against the tide.